to order at 6:03, and we are recording? Yes. Amber's not in the room, correct, so we should do a real roll call. Sorry, I'm like, Julie, are you the only one online? Sorry, I can't see. Anybody who can see her?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And just for Amber's sake, we'll go around the table. Deb, you want to start?
Deb Higuera, Principal, Ludlow Elementary School. Cheryl Hammond, Business Manager.
Lane Millington, Superintendent.
Kelly Tarbell?
Craig Bader, Principal, Mount Holly.
Dave Martin.
Jen Napolki. Caitlin Benson.
Thank you. And then approval of the agenda. We do have an addition we would do it at the end of the meeting, right? We don't need to do it before. Yeah. Yep. To add an executive session to discuss non-bargaining unit staff contracts under Title 1, Section 313, personal contracts. You want to make that motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Seconded by Katie. Thank you. So we will add that after old business. All right. And then all those in favor of the agenda as amended? Anybody opposed? Perfect. Approval of meeting minutes from March 12th.
I'll move we approve them.
Thank you.
When do we make a discussion on adding or deleting? After we second it and then discuss?
Oh, yeah. What? Did I rush you?
No, there's a couple things on the minutes.
Oh, yeah, we're still talking about
Okay.
minutes.
Okay,
Yes,
for the
yes, because I
minutes.
was trying to find mine too, because I had a couple of, yeah.
Perfect.
Go ahead, maybe they're the same.
It's just at the top says that it was February 12th, it was March 12th. That the meeting was held.
Yeah,
Can we talk about that one?
fine now.
Okay.
That's a big one.
And then the old business of the policy second read, that was mentioned again.
Tell me, wait, I'm not caught up to you yet, Katie. What old business?
Page 5.
Thank you. 8-5, new
It's on
old
the back.
business, yes.
I was not here during that meeting. During the meeting in March,
Oh,
in
right.
that one. So,
I
but I don't know if that
wonder if it was Katie K, and she's not here at the moment. Right. And that might have been mine too, because mine was a name thing, so that's what I'm trying to find.
What you got? Sorry about that. You just-
Sorry, I'm trying to. Yeah, maybe it wasn't for these minutes, because I can't find what I found, and it was a name thing, so maybe that was what it was. Anybody else have anything they noticed when they read through? Sorry. Changing, well, we'll have to, can we approve them without, no, I don't think we can.
Well,
Can we?
can we ask Cheryl to look at the recording and see if she.
Well, it would be Amber.
Or Amber, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it would be Amber. Jill's, yeah.
Have Amber look at the recording and try to figure out who.
Right, but I think we'll have to bring them back next time for approval, because I don't think they're. I think with that question, we can change the February to March, and that's easy. But I think the other one, because we're not sure and we'd have to watch the recording, we have to table that till next time. And we don't need to motion to table it, or do we? No.
Actually, you should, if it's on the written agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, can we vote these, or should we vote these down and then we'll make the motion to table them?
Yeah.
Seems
Well, or-
proper order, right?
Vote it down or.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving the minutes as typed? All those in favor? All those against?
No.
Okay, yes. All right, thank you. And now I would entertain a motion to table the meeting minutes of March 12th, which are dated February 12th, till next time when we get the corrections made.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
All right.
Discussion.
Thank you. All right, so all those in favor of tabling the minutes until May?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. All right, we'll move on from that chaos. All right, then, board comments. Any board comments at the moment? Thank you. Public comments. Thanks for doing your work. Thanks for coming. Update from Dave. We're all sitting in different seats today, so it's throwing me off. Update from Dave, who usually sits over there. Vermont Rural School Community Alliance.
Okay, so the legislature is hard at work on trying to figure out what to do. The House Education Committee, and I believe Ways and Means Committee passed out the H 454 and sent it to the Assembly. And it's a huge bill. It would do lots and lots of things. On the consolidating the districts, we would have a commission that would give up to three different ideas, and then the legislature would vote on them. It would set class sizes for grades 1 to 4, and kindergarten 12, 1 to 4 at 15, and 5 to 12 at 18 as a minimum size. It would have a minimum school size of 450 for grades 6 to 12. Right? And I don't know what happens with grade 6 in that,
Right.
in that scenario. Obviously a problem for Green Mountain, right? It would reestablish a school construction aid program. It would pay between 20% and 40% of debt service beginning in July 26, right? It's not clear where the money is going to come from to do that. That would be a next year budget issue. It would limit which schools could get tuition payments, right? It would be Vermont schools who are currently have more than half of their kids getting paid for by other school districts, right? And so it's a way of legalizing sort of Burton and the traditional academies, right? Without opening it to schools that just get a handful of kids, right? And the schools, they would also have to comply with a minimum class size. And so I don't know what that would mean for Black River, right? Probably they could get the same, they'd be eligible for the same waiver that public schools are eligible for. Presumably they would get that.
Can you, wait, I'm confused by that.
Okay, so the minimum, because Black River is not going to have a minimum class size of 18 kids.
I'll say it's not just the Black Rivers, but
Ludlow Elementary School.
or.
No, he's talking about the
Expedition.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, thank you. I was like,
I was like, we're confused, don't be Black River.
all right, now I'm with you.
Okay.
In my haste to get here on sort of time, I skipped my Dunkin' run, so you're gonna have to.
Oh, no.
And also, the tuition rate would decrease and would become the same as the basic payment, per student.
Right.
Can you elaborate on
Is that what?
that? Can you elaborate on that?
Okay, so there'd be a new formula set for, it's called foundation aid, of how much each school would
So
get
that's what you
per
meant.
pupil.
And that's.
And the tuition rate would be that same amount.
Oh, interesting.
And so we probably wouldn't lose any money anymore.
No, that would be a big savings for us.
It might be, right.
No, it will be.
Um,
No way.
Now, and it would make dramatic changes to the whole formula, right? And they're complicated. The special ed, we should win too, because they're going to take away the block grant and go back to paying an increment depending on how many kids get a little bit of assistance, how much get a medium amount, how many get a lot.
Can I
but-
ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did you interpret this from what they did, or did someone give you a summary?
Okay, I got the summary from reading the joint legislative office, fiscal, they write a summary of the bill. And so the bill is huge. So no, I didn't even look at the
157
bill.
pages, I went, no.
Right. Yeah, but no.
My understanding, though, is that there is substantial divergence between the Senate version and the House version.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah. This
Yeah.
is just the House version that I'm describing.
And you're saying, Dave, all these things are gonna happen while the commission studies it? These things are gonna happen immediately, and then they're gonna study?
I'd have to go back and, some things would take effect in July 26, and some things not until later years.
But this is not a done deal. This is
No.
this is our idea and,
From the House.
right. So it's not, this is
It's actually
not,
just from the House Ways and Means Committee, and then the Education Committee and their work together, and the House hasn't voted on it yet.
right.
And it would be July 26th,
Well, if
so next.
nothing would be earlier than July 26. Some things would be a year or two or even 3 years later. And again, there's a huge chart in the back of the fiscal committee's note that lists all the effective dates. It would also change the income sensitivity so that you'd get a percentage reduction in your property tax based on your income, right? But you'd get it, instead of getting a tax credit coming back, it would be an immediate reduction with the time you pay your property tax. So it seems likely that the House will pass this bill perhaps with an amendment, right? Or a number of amendments. And the Rural School Alliance is pushing for amendments that would prohibit the closing of a school unless the voters in that town agree, and would also establish a rather lengthy process for consultation and figuring out whether the school would close or not. We asked Kevin Winter whether he would go along with that amendment, and he didn't answer the question. He said it's a complex issue. There are lots of things out there. Probably he's going to vote against the bill anyway, as most Republicans will, because it doesn't go as far, it doesn't do as much as the governor wants to do. And so I think in both the Education Committee and Ways and Means, the Democrats all voted for it, and the Republicans all voted against it. The alliance, they're pushing in two areas. I said one is to limit the closing of small schools, and the other area they're pushing for is to avoid the consolidation of school districts. They haven't focused on the other issues, which are less specifically relevant to rural schools. The other issues. When I worked in New York, the legislature never ever considered a bill like this until they got what they called a run, showing exactly how much money each district would get in the following year as a result of the law changes. And nobody's done that work yet. And so nobody can really predict for sure who's winners and losers unless Cheryl could probably spend a couple of days and come up with a guess, right? But it would still only be a guess, right? Using all the numbers that are in there. And then another concern is that, like the change in the pupil count, to the extent they're winners, districts would probably leave their taxes the same and spend most of the extra money on things that they ought to and need to do, right? And districts that are losers would mostly raise their taxes in order to keep doing what they're already doing. And so you'd have exactly the same problem that we did last time. And there didn't seem to be any phase-in or any thought as to what to do in a transition. And so it would probably blow up the same way because taxes would increase, and as Lane keeps reminding us, it wouldn't be just for the districts who are spending more, or they'd go up for almost everybody. We had a good meeting with Kevin, our rep, just over a week ago. And it was good, and it was well attended. 20, 25 people here, and then a number more on Zoom. his obsession, I think, if I want to call it, maybe exaggerating, unfair word, his focus is that he believes that we're spending too much money on the schools and that we're getting poor results, right? Whereas Kelly looked online and found a half dozen places that showed us all somewhere from being the 4th best to being about the 15th best in terms of our results. And it's true that we're spending more money than in Vermont per pupil than most because we're a rural state. And that it's inevitable that we're going to spend more, but the claim that we're not getting good results just doesn't seem to be borne out.
And could I add that that's the state average for Vermont being the 4th to the 15th best?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, I can't speak for LES because I don't analyze that data well. So, but I know in Mount Holly, we are exceeding the state average by substantial margins.
Right. Ludlow is, Cavendish certainly is. I don't know the numbers for Chester, but I mean,
right.
And the other thing that some of that data showed is that all the states that were doing very well in terms of results were spending above average amounts of money. You know, that some people like to claim that there's no relationship between how much you spend and the results that you get, and that's just not true. You know, that if the minimum sizes that were in here went into effect and we laid off 2 or 3 teachers from each school, it's going to hit our results hard. I mean, it's almost undeniable.
Yeah.
But I mean, I say the Senate seems much more open, or much, I should say, much more skeptical about many of these ideas, and it's harder to predict. I wrote to Brian Callamore, is that his name? Who's newly our senator in Mount Holly. He's not. He doesn't represent Ludlow, I don't think. He's the Rutland guy, and he wrote back saying that he thought that the changes in the formula would be acted on this year. They probably wouldn't act on all the other stuff until sometime in the future. And again, so one last concern, and then I'll shut up. Is that when a legislature acts, they don't do their homework. You know, they don't go through and study an issue, you know, any of these issues. They rely on what the Agency of Education tells them, and they don't have enough experts in school finance. I mean, they can barely do the administrative stuff that they're supposed to be doing, much less do policy analysis. And you know, they messed up Act 46, they messed up 127, they messed up the special ed one, right? And nobody has ever studied the impact of those changes that they made then. I mean, what happened after Act 46? Did spending go down? We don't think so. I mean, we know it didn't here, but we don't know the statewide, you know. What happened after the special ed? Right? Did anything good come of it? I don't think so, but, you know, right? And again, and we all know how they messed up the changing the pupil count. Again, it was probably a fairer way to count, but they didn't figure out how to do a transition that wouldn't, you know, blow up in the whole state. And so, as I would talk to people in the legislature, I would say, you've got to do your homework before you do something as radical as all the stuff that's in this bill. And they can't because they don't have any staff. You know, Kevin's not going to do the homework, and nobody else is either.
Well, I will say Emily Kornheiser and Peter Connell have come to some of the business managers' meetings and have talked to us and gotten our feedback.
Oh, the only last thing I want to say is that our School Boards Association came out in favor of the bill, the House bill.
Yes.
I don't know how they come to their positions without consulting anybody.
Remember what I said, my feeling was that they rolled over.
Yeah, I mean, do we pay dues to them? And should we? I mean,
They must have an executive board that's made up with
right.
sampling across the state, that's how they make those.
Right, no, but I mean, I would hope that on an issue this major, they would do some kind of consultation back to individual boards before they take a public position. Especially, I mean, I can't imagine that most rural boards would be in favor of the House bill. I don't know, maybe everyone who works there lives in Montpelier or Burlington and they don't care. I don't know. But at some point, I think we need to register our displeasure with our association. Sorry, I went on it.
Yeah, no,
but it's a big issue.
It is a big issue, and I appreciate your work and dedication in it. I agree. I've filled out some forms, and I guess I also never know, like, if we're not sitting here at this table, I feel like I am representing Kelly Charbel, not the Ludlow-Mount Holly School Board. And so when I fill out things, I try to do it from, knowledge as a teacher, as a parent, as an educator, as, a taxpayer, and, my board hat is slightly different, but I did fill out a couple of those surveys. I don't think they were the same ones. And so I was hoping that some of that information would go to places like that. I don't know who's reading them on the other end, I guess. Superintendent's report.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. In the actual written report that's in there, there's a lot of bullet points from the report that David was referring to. But kind of to start out is just a reminder to everybody out there that the budget revote is on April 22nd. The town offices are open from 10 to 7. Absentee ballots have been available for a little while for those who couldn't make it in person. All you've got to do is call, email, or stop by your town offices to pick those up. The annual reports are being mailed. They've been updated. And before the end of the week, we will be sending out a PDF version, full version of the annual report, so folks have that. We'll have it posted on the website. That's actually already up there. We'll try to get it on as many Facebook accounts in and around the town as possible, so that people have that. A lot of the discussion, especially at the superintendent's level, is across the state, is obviously about the governor's plan, about what's happening with the House Bill, the 454. I do want to touch on a couple of the points that David had brought up, which I think are really important. The conversation, especially with poor results, I would argue that until the legislature stops making mandates that we have to jump through hoops on, that waste our time and have absolutely no impact on schools, that they cannot accuse us of having poor results. In the 7 years that I've been here, I could probably count 45 or 50 different mandates that have come about, most of them designed to either improve taxes or improve educational standing and improve student achievement. And where is our student achievement? And it's all been us working towards what the legislature told us to do. At some point in time, they have to have a little bit of trust and step back and recognize that folks that have been in the educational field for 30 plus years, have 3 or 4 master's degrees or higher, probably aren't always perfect, but kind of know what they're doing most of the time. And so that would be my call out to the legislators out there is put a moratorium for 5 years on mandates. And just like David said, if you are going to mandate something, that law doesn't go into effect unless you put in measurements, unless you put in data to measure the impact of it over time, so that we know. In terms of House 454, touch on a couple of things. David hit the point where any schools grades 6 to 12 have to have a minimum enrollment of 450 students to be able to kind of survive the current rendition of this bill. But they don't really talk about the elementary zone. And so that leaves the question, there aren't that many high schools around the state of Vermont. And so this isn't to say, they should choose elementary or they should choose the high school. it's to say that if your intent of all this work is to lower taxes, you can't do it with just high schools. It's as simple as that. They do have some hidden language that came from the governor. Should a district fail to meet the educational quality standards, district or school, or the mandated class sizes, so you've got to meet their class sizes or you've got to meet the quality standards, the state would be allowed to change supervisory union boundaries, right? Consolidate districts, close schools, and or take administrative control of the district. So that's where the elementaries probably come in without stating them out full. Is again, the power to make those decisions, at least based upon the governor's plan, is placed in the hands of the Secretary of Education. So just things for folks to be aware of. They did, as part of this bill, add in a provision that the construction aid fund would come back, but they have no amount that they specified should be put into that fund every year. They did create a mechanism, but it's unclear how things are worded. I couldn't even figure out what they meant by how. So that was a little bit disturbing to me. As David pointed out, you had the Act 173, and that was changing to the block grant for special education. Now, within 3 years, they want to switch it to a student-weighted funding mechanism. So they're getting completely rid of the block grant. So again, when you make these changes that are supposed to fix things and they don't, maybe it's time to take a step back. They also mentioned a supplemental district spending reserve that will be managed by the state. What that implies is that we will not probably be able to have reserve funds to do the work that we need to in our schools and to maintain our facilities. And then
Construction.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm having like retirement fund issues flashing through my head, like they were so good at managing that they think they. Sorry.
Well, again, it's that control piece, and so it makes me a little bit nervous, and I'm usually pretty calm. Replacement of the current property tax credit system with an exemption based on income. I don't know how that's different from our current property tax credit system. And then full implementation of these changes by 2029. Obviously, there's going to be modifications as the bill goes back and forth between House and Senate. But what was interesting is that the Joint Fiscal Office in its report repeatedly stated, I'm going to see if I can get their exact words, the financial impacts of most of these changes cannot be estimated. Further, they make it clear that in order to consolidate, buildings will need to be renovated or modified to accept a larger number of students. Again, they are unable to calculate potential costs. It's not that they're going to be able to do it sometime in the future, it's that they can't. And so it's hard to see why people would put a lot of faith in something when you can't even potentially predict the outcome of what it's supposed to solve. But I'll get off my high horse there, but I think it's concerning. I care about kids, I care about the schools, and I do not see this serving well. I'm a little bit upset with the VSBA as well, because they were sending a letter around that everybody needs to support this in its current form, as well as the Vermont Superintendents Association. And so, yeah, is what it is. But just that people should follow this. Make sure that you're aware of what's happening, what the potential impacts could be.
Given how divergent the House and Senate versions are, are you, no one can predict any of this, but are you feeling like this is actually going to become legislation in this session?
Yeah, I think they'll change the thought that's bouncing around there right now is that the funding portion will change, right? They'll go to that foundation formula that they've been talking about that they brought up. But I think that's the only thing they'll potentially be able to get done.
Without understanding what the financial impacts will be.
Yeah, well, you're trying to change the financial impacts and the educational quality of Vermont, but you can't predict the outcomes of what you're trying to do. That's disturbing. It's just as disturbing to me as we don't measure the legislature doesn't measure the impact of the changes it's made over the last 50 years. It's disturbing. Any one of us would get fired in education if we weren't collecting data and using it to inform our decisions.
Absolutely.
So, but
Stay on,
my piece.
stay on the horse.
I'm happy. I feel better. I had my catharsis.
Okay, principal's report.
Oh, sorry, I had a question for Lane.
Go ahead.
Lane, can you say what, if any, impact or reaction you have to the U.S. Department of Education's request of school boards making affirmative statements or swearing that they weren't engaging in, prohibited so-called programs in exchange for maintaining their funding? Is that mostly being handled by the state, or is our district being asked to do anything?
Yeah, I can go into as much detail on that as you'd like. So the new administration had sent out a directive stating that every district across the country needed to sign an agreement, sign a statement that, we would not support any DEI work happening within the districts, within the schools. And if we were not willing to sign it, that they would pull all federal funding. And again, federal funding is usually about 10% of the budgets in most districts, especially in Vermont. So it's a big deal. At first, the Secretary of Education kind of was being reluctant and kind of leaving it in the hands of the districts to figure out. This is one place where I'll give a kudos to the VSBA and the Superintendents Association, is they had a lot of conversations and statements with folks connected to the Secretary. And she did send out a statement a day or so ago that she would send a state response similar to what Massachusetts and New York did, basically stating the truth, which is their directives are not law. We will follow current law. And current law is that, the Civil Rights Act is current law. Our Accommodations Act in the state of Vermont is current law. And that's what we will follow.
Which was pretty different than what you released on Friday.
Yeah. So there's been an about face on that. But waits to be seen what the federal response will be to those letters.
And I mean, how much should we be concerned about the loss of that 10% of funding at this point?
We could survive. It wouldn't be pleasant. We would not be able to support the students, especially the ones that need the most support, the way that they should be. It would hamper our ability to do professional development with the teachers to make sure that they're trained and being able to serve the students and their particular needs. After school program, summer program. Yeah. The statements to put all the pieces together that were coming out earlier was the intent of the cuts at the beginning. They were going after anything that served English language learner students and anything that impacted basically students that needed support, especially if it was related to social emotional issues or training or work. So those seem to be the two areas that they were most focused on with the initial cuts that they were talking about.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry. All right, now principal's report.
Okay, so we continue to do the slideshow presentation, so you can kind of see where we are. Principal reports, we have 2 assemblies coming up in the end of April. I had reported out that Plymouth State Tigers were coming back after our last meeting, and they had a snafu with their schedule and double booked themselves, so they're coming back They're coming here on the 24th and they're offering us some additional workshops. We have Sweethearts and Heroes coming. We continue to work on our SIP goals. The kindergarten won the March Madness Math Challenge, and you can see a picture of them over in the corner there. They got to choose their prize, and they chose that they wanted ice cream sundaes. So we had ice cream sundaes as a kindergarten class. I want to say, on average, in the month of March, they answered over 192 questions collectively, on average, for their class. So that was pretty spectacular. This month is a single student challenge, and we have students who have already answered 700 questions to date. And they get to pick a prize out of my prize basket, and they're excited about their learning there. We continue to have win blocks and data teams, and based on our data teams, those win blocks change, or what I need blocks change. First and second graders have been working very hard on writing their persuasive essays, and they tried to persuade me that they wanted more recess time in response, and I'll be going into their classroom to share that response with them. And the other thing that we've been working on is our VTCAP, or Vermont Comprehensive Assessment System, or assessment program. Kids in grades 3 through 6 take math and ELA, fifth graders take science. We did ELA last week, we started math today. I have to say that in all of my years of kids taking assessments, our kids this year have worked so very hard. They're taking their time, they're being thoughtful about answering the questions. So I'm hopeful that their efforts will pay off, and all the hard work that we've done in our intervention blocks this year will also have paid off, because you walk in the building when they're testing, and they are working hard and taking their time, and it's just great to see how hard they're working on those things. Our enrollment keeps changing and going up, and our 2 classrooms that are the largest keep getting new students. It's like they come in, it's like, oh, what grade are you in? And we're like, oh. So we're up to 83 this year. Right now, you can see where those numbers fall. The counts do include the students in the intensive needs program, and they push in as they have the ability to do so. And based on this current year's enrollment, what we're anticipating next year is about 88 students. At our last meeting, there was some talk about wanting more information about special education. And while I can't give you specific numbers by grade level, because some of the information would make things very easily identifiable, here's what I can share with you. As you know, we house the intensive needs program here at Ludlow Elementary School. Those students are reflected in our student population and counted as students in our school, counted when we look at our assessment data. So they are part of who we are as a community. 1/3 of those students are from the TRICU. So that means within either the Ludlow-Mount Holly side or the Green Mountain side of our district. And 2/3 of those students are from outside of our district that come here for the intensive needs program specifically.
And how many are in the intensive program altogether?
So if I don't know whether that would make it identifiable or not. So ask me that question in just a little bit, and I'll give you that number. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. I was gonna ask you a question, but
Okay.
I'll ask it at the end of this slide.
So, we have a total of 29 IEPs, or that's about 36% of our student population. That includes the students in our intensive needs program. And then we have 2 504 students. And then, our pre-K, we have several students within our pre-K program, like in the intensive needs program, where they come to Ludlow from the Green Mountain side of the district because we have specialized services that we can offer those kiddos, but I can give more of that information in executive session.
My question is, and I think I know the answer, but I would like people out in the big world to hear it. When we have 2/3 of the students coming from outside of our district, they are paying us
Yes,
tuition, and is it at the same rate as the regular ed tuition that it gets announced?
So it's regular tuition plus, we bill off their,
I'm sorry, plus,
Okay,
Yeah,
we
there's
bill off
still-
their IEP,
okay.
they're billed back for the services that they receive.
Great, thanks, Deb. So our enrollment's ticking up a little bit too, so I adjusted our current numbers, so we're up to 100, and I didn't really try to adjust my 25-26 projections again, because, you know, you could say maybe we went up 3, so maybe that's 91 now, but I'm kind of like gonna wait until we have our kindergarten and pre-K registration before I get so excited. Yeah, but yeah. Any questions about enrollment? Okay. This is gonna be a little redundant on Deb's, but we are really happy to come and join in on that program on the 29th, and we also have started VTCAP testing, and our kids are also very, very engaged and working hard and taking their time. We're kind of our approach to kind of thinking about our progress and our data teams is a little different than what Deb was describing. So we're really focused on individuals being aware of their own data and then trying to sort of make progress on an individual growth basis. And so kids are really conferencing with me and their teachers and looking at various types of assessments that they've participated in, and then kind of setting goals for what they think is a realistic target for improvement. And we're seeing through our MLSS process, our multi-layers of supports, that kids are really making substantial growth. Obviously, these big assessments will kind of be the proof in the pudding. But one kind of significant milestone for IXL is our kindergartners are actually the first class in the whole school to be 100% proficient or above in mathematics. So they were all just trying to beat their personal best, and then as a team, they realized, wow, we pulled it, we pulled it off together. So that was kind of neat. So there's a little bit of a conflict for the next meeting date for our school board and our spring concert. They're both in the same night. They're both in Mount Holly and start at 6. Julie and I think, might be the only one, so we could just come a little late. But we just wanted to kind of check. You had mentioned maybe wanted to see part of the concert.
Right, yeah, I'd like to go to that. Yeah.
So another way
At least part of it.
we could adjust our start time a little. I don't know how you guys want to handle it.
do you want to have that discussion now? I mean, I don't know, Julie, like, I'm just thinking, we could start late, would that be productive? I don't know what grade your children are in, and if it goes in the order of kindergarten
Yeah,
through whatever, and you're gonna wait for 6th grade, then we may as well start on time, if, you know.
Yeah.
That's all I'm thinking, is what would be the productivity of doing, starting later,
the whole
yeah.
show is going to be about 45 minutes, so we wouldn't be that late. And Julie, you can speak that if you want to. You wouldn't be there to the end. necessarily.
And I think actually, like, I don't know if my assumption is Katie would also potentially be late. So if, as long as you have a quorum, without Katie and myself, Katie K, then I say start on time and
Yeah, I think we can,
Has to show up though. Because you're.
That would mean everyone.
Yeah.
right, and we can be strategic maybe in the agenda when we plan it to make sure the bigger voted items are more toward the end.
There's some quirky ways around it, I'll
Yeah,
talk to you about.
yeah, we'll see if we can,
But that's the best thing probably to do if it's possible, if you don't have a quorum, is you just vote, just hold the meeting for 15, 20 minutes until Julia can show up, yeah.
but I think I think we can just start on time and make it work rather than staying till really late at night too, yeah. Okay, perfect.
Cool, that's great. And then sorry.
Comes all this,
Yeah, I would just need to share our aggregate special education data.
Sorry. I closed everything down.
Well, I could just say it too. So we have 100 students now. We have 27 students who are on IEPs. 4 of those are speech only, and those are kids who are on grade level or above. So they just are working on a speech issue. That is roughly 24% of our population. And we do have 9 students on 504s. And sometimes people think, oh, okay, IEPs and 504s, that's a lot, it adds more kids. It's actually counterintuitive because kids who are on 504s have identified disabilities or diagnoses. However, they don't qualify for an IEP because they don't have adverse effect. So they're close to grade level or on or above. And so to me, those are like really kind of very positive cases where kids are, oftentimes they get to a 504 from an IEP. So they've closed a gap, reduced adverse effect, and now still have some accommodations and modifications that they need, but they're not getting specialized services or direct instruction from personnel that can be costly. Any questions about our data?
Curriculum report we have in our packet. Do you have highlights for us, Lane?
Yeah, I can go over a few things. A lot of it is Luis has been pretty heavily engaged in quite a bit of work. Some of the bigger things right now that are going on is they're in the data collection phase to update the continuous improvement plans that are typically submitted to the state to have access to the title funding. One part of that is a community survey that is going to be going out shortly. It's a climate survey that happens every year, and some of that data is used to be able to justify the request for title funding. She's been meeting monthly with the mentor leaders. We have teacher mentors that help out when the new teachers start in their first year to get them to know the system, to get them to know the people that are here, to train them on the initiatives that we're working on with the kids, and to get them up to speed as quickly as possible. She's taking on the challenge, working with a couple of folks to redo the mentor handbook. Because some of the parts and pieces of it are a bit outdated. And one of the things that we've asked her to add to that, which she's working on, is the idea that the mentors aren't necessarily just used for new teachers, but if we have an older teacher who might be struggling in one area, we can assign a mentor there to help them get the professional development they need to get up to speed. At the monthly principal meetings, they're currently planning out the professional development for next year. And that's about supporting, creating professional development that supports the continuous improvement plan and the academic goals that we have. She talked a little bit about the Read Vermont. Some of the grants have been placed on hold, and one of the biggest ones is Read Vermont. The state had recognized that there were issues in terms of student literacy across the state, so this was a grant-funded program that they put into place. It all came to a screeching halt about a week ago when they clawed the money back. The federal government is also clawing back the remainder of the ESSER funds. Folks are in the middle of the state assessment, the VCAT and the Vermont Science Assessment. That's ongoing right now. They had a really good day on March 21st with the in-service. She did a survey of what people thought and what people got out of it, and it was incredibly positive. And then one of the bigger things, there is a work group that most of the principals have been engaged in, Craig and Deb as well, to kind of revamp our MTSS system, how we intervene on kids that are struggling before they have a need to be referred to special education. So a tremendous amount of work that's going on around the district that she's leading up, which is awesome. Stuff that we get. I don't know if there's questions or.
If I could, I would add just something about Vermont reading. I've been engaged in coaching cycles with the coach from Vermont Read, and I think Deb has too. We have staff that are also engaged in that work, and it's been highly productive. Like the expertise that the folks that lead that they're from the Stern Center in partnership with the AOE, and Deb and I have done extensive professional development. We did a 45-hour grad course last summer, the science of reading, effective literacy and instructional practices. And I'm finding that the work in these coaching cycles is so substantive and so helpful in building on continued learning and improvement. I don't know if you found that too. I've gotten that feedback from all of our staff that are engaged in it, so it's really a shame.
And that's,
paused.
I'm just gonna, that is
We're hoping
things
it's
that got
paused.
nixed, right?
Yeah.
That's,
They are saying optimistically paused, but it's probably
Fairly story.
they didn't do a waiver too.
yes, but it could be a long time.
Facilities director,
Todd's off at the helping out at the baseball game over at Springfield tonight. Not a lot to report. I think the biggest thing that's on his mind right now is do we want to start having folks do an estimate on the roof at Mount Hon. They did have some leakage this winter. But it was due to an ice dam. It was backing the water up. It was trying to flow off the roof. So after the ice was gone, you had a pretty good rainstorm that day. I came up, I was coming up to check.
Yeah.
And so no water was leaking in, so it was definitely due to the ice. But it means if they keep the roof that they have for a while longer, then in the wintertime, they're gonna have to go out there and shovel the snow off the roof each time we get a snowfall just to keep that from happening again. But that was the question that he had, is if, doesn't mean we have to act on it, but do we at least want to, start working on getting an estimate? This is a good idea of what it costs.
Yeah, he and I were discussing specifically, like, could you vent the roof more effectively? And just to clarify on what Elaine was talking about with that ice dam, it was one little area above my office where two pieces of the roof really, and so to break that from the ground, it's not going to be a big deal. It was just a lot of snow and then a lot of rain right away, and it dried right up.
Yeah, so they're the repairs that they did last year.
Yeah.
And I think my thought would be that if we get the budget passed on April 22nd, then we may schedule a facilities committee meeting to think of
Right.
what are the options. What are the options if we pay cash? What are the options if we take out a small bond? Okay.
refresh my memory about Todd's reports. Is he going to continue? He was talking about changing them, and I don't remember where we landed.
the last piece here, it was the PFAS, is that they've got a good update on that. So what's happening with, two of the boards switching over to policy governance? Typically, how that works is that the folks, the principals and, folks like Cheryl and Todd, they would put in a report. If the board has things that they need to talk about that go above and beyond, or there's questions, or that's when you say, hey, we need you here. And they would show up. And a lot of that is the idea that, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, we got $600,000, $700,000 worth of administrators sitting here right now. And I'd much rather have them be rested and ready to go tomorrow working on stuff with the kids.
We'll just be at home working.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a part of it. And so that's this board is not going policy governance. So that's a decision this board. Okay. So we're okay either way, but that's what the discussion is.
But I mean, I thought what Todd said is that he'd give us a written report.
Yeah.
Okay, so it didn't happen this time, right?
He gave it to me to give verbally.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, if someone's not going to come, it'd be good to have it as part of the packet. So that.
Are you okay with that process though, just of giving the report, and if you need them, call them in?
Yeah. And what I would suggest is that in general he gives us a written report, and that perhaps consults with you and with Kelly before the meeting to say, maybe there's something that we're going to want to talk about this meeting, and so it would be good to come for at least that part of the meeting, right? Instead of waiting and we have the discussion and say, all right, then next month, he should come, but.
I feel like when
It's
he
slow,
sends
yeah.
in the report, if it's something big, he wants to be.
Yeah, if there's going to be something that we are going to need to take a vote on, like, a money thing or, a capital project thing, or might turn into something like that, I would appreciate him coming for questions.
I agree. I want to be respectful of his time, but I also struggle with, I feel like he's the expert, or what, not just him, but whatever, Cheryl or whoever, principals. And so I sometimes, I like to hear from them what's, rather than third person, interpreted sort of things.
Was there a way, like, when he gives you the report, to send it to us like a day or two so that we can read it and then decide, oh, hey, I really do need him there, or no, I'm good,
Yeah, there's no reason that can't happen.
I mean, I'm thinking if we can, and I can't think it through right now, but if we could set it up so that the reports came prior to the meeting where we schedule the agenda.
Yeah.
And then if it were a bigger thing, then, because also we can't say 2 days before, hey, Ted, you gotta show up tonight.
Right,
He's like,
right,
sorry,
right,
right,
yeah.
yeah.
That makes
So, but I'm
sense.
thinking Lane and I usually meet, it's like 2 weeks-ish before this meeting to make the agenda. So if he had the reports, they would be a little bit delayed, but maybe we can work something out that way.
I say, and I also feel like just like when, like in this discussion that we had with him before, was that he'd be open to that, like if there's something
Right,
big,
and maybe
no problem in not
quarterly or something, yeah, we could work something
Yeah,
out.
because I'm trying to get out of the.
And it's funny too, is looking the experience across the 3 different boards. Deb and Craig actually have a lot more input here and spend a bit more time. The other board meetings, they'll come in, they might talk for 2 or 3 minutes, and then, they're just kind of sitting in the background for the next 2 hours. So just other thoughts. Yeah.
The other option for at least some meetings for Todd would be, say, he shows up at 6:45 on Zoom, right?
Right, yeah.
And he's there for the 10 or 15 minutes instead of spending the whole evening. And if he's going to be at a particular time, we of course can move his report so that, if we're moving either quickly or slowly, say, all right, we'll jump to him at that time.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Facilities director, any other comments about that or questions that we can pass on to Todd? All right.
Are you guys just thinking about that for Todd, or are you thinking, I'm not sure, like, what you're thinking in terms of the person?
I hadn't thought about it till somebody just said it a couple seconds
Yeah,
ago.
right.
So,
Well, I think
so there's not a lot going on in my brain tonight.
And I didn't mean just you, like, we should plan to come next month.
I would think, at least next month. I mean, yes,
Yeah,
if
'cause
that's
we're not
something we want to put on the
policy
agenda
next
to talk
So
about, I
that's
think
where-
that would be appropriate to talk at a meeting about, but, you know, not tonight when we haven't had the thoughts to prepare that yet.
Just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we're prepared for that.
Yeah, but I also
Well, you
think
want us
like
to be.
it's good for like the public to hear the principal
Right,
too, and not just have it as part of work package read.
Yeah,
That's good.
I actually have a question about facilities. Do we have any more information about what we need to do with the Mount Holly roof?
The last conversation that was had was about the time folks were checking out on the Little League. He asked, how long, could we be able to carry on with what we currently have? The response was, it's not like an immediate crisis mode, but, within the next year or two, you really want to get some consideration done about doing a replacement.
Okay, so we're not concerned that currently there is like an active leak.
oh no, there's definitely not a leak. There was an ice dam that we now know how to prevent from happening in the future. And
Okay.
that melted, we've had some pretty serious rain and we have had no leak at all.
Okay,
That was the testing to see if it was just the ice or if it was something else.
And we can prevent a future ice dam. It's a very specific spot. It's actually above my office. And it's where two parts of the roof come and a lot of snow kind of accumulates and it's reachable with a rake. It's not very far above the kind of the edge. And so now that we know that, that's never happened in, all 21 years that I've been there, but it was a learning experience to know how to prevent that in the future.
and then
I just-
another question, is there a concern about the Mount Holly septic system?
There is, but we don't have enough information yet to say this is what's going on. We've had the tank pumped. We are getting set up to have somebody come out and actually go through the pipes and things with a camera. The worst case scenario is that, septic tanks are usually good about 50 years if they're properly taken care of. As far as we can tell, that tank probably came with the building.
We don't really know.
But we don't really know. So we don't have enough.
Yes.
We don't have enough information to say, yeah, there is or no, there's not until we get that scoping done.
Okay,
When they did the pumping, there's a float in the dry well and that arm got kind of hung up. And then they came back the next day and got the pump running again. And it's all been properly functioning since then. So there hasn't been any issue since then. So it's fully pumped and the pump is running well.
Financial update.
Okay, we are 3/4 of the way through the year. So ending in March, we had spent 69.62% of the budget. Going through the financials, I don't see anything that I haven't already reported to you of concern at this point. Yeah, we're rolling into the end of the year a little too quickly here. I am not an HR person, for those who didn't know. I have hired somebody, but they're not gonna start for a month or so. So kind of wearing two hats, so it's been like a little bit busy here. We have federal monitoring, as a company, we have federal monitoring coming up on, April 24th.
You sure they didn't get cut? Because it is possible. I'm not being facetious.
So I provided all the information to them, and they were supposed to get back to me yesterday of what else I needed to do, and I didn't hear from them. So, I would like to just be done with it. So I'm fine if they come, just come do it. So that would be all the federal grants or any money that was funneled through the state. That would be all of it. So that's coming up on soon.
Any questions, comments for Cheryl? Budget review.
That was sure.
Oh, that was Cheryl, sorry.
Yeah, we can cut it up, well.
You want to say it again?
Vote on April 22nd.
April 22nd,
So-
get your absentee
If you have
ballots.
questions, feel free to reach out to me.
And Lane, we're gonna have another meeting on the 21st in
6 PM.
Holly. 6 PM in the library?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another opportunity to
Yeah,
come and
that's-
ask questions,
And up to.
and on Zoom, yes. Remote update, classes with high
Well, just back on, I mean, should we be trying to put up more signs or somehow making people aware that April 22nd is the date? And do we need to worry about that, or you guys take care of it, or?
So what we're going to do is, we have, half-page flyers that will be handed out on pickup on Friday afternoon, and then we'll do it again, Monday. When we come back from break, we'll hand out those flyers. Tuesday morning, we'll have more flyers reminding people to vote as they drop kids off. So that's kind of the avenue that we're going here, and then anything that, Lane puts out with information, I send to Kim, and Kim posts it on the PTG Facebook page. We're still kind of in flux since Diana Chimbolo left, really trying to figure out how to manage our Facebook page, because she was the owner and now she's not the owner, and we can't, it's still a work in process.
Are you referring to the new Facebook pages that are, Diana is the owner of the new one?
No.
No.
But Jen Ringe, our administrative assistant, would have to add it to her personal account to access it, and it involves creating another, like, fake name or fake birthday, so we're working through that process right now.
Okay, I guess,
Well,
And forgive me.
who owns the new page?
right,
Can't they just make her an administrator on it?
No,
Uh-huh.
you have to have your own Facebook account to actually,
And you can't make a second Facebook account. We tried, it said, you know, you're probably not a person, and it was this strange thing came up and said, we're gonna try to verify that you're an actual person, stand in front of the camera while we scan you.
wow. So we're in the process of trying to figure out how to make that work for us here at Ludlow.
I mean, yeah, I've been trying to get people on it, and I've sent it out, and I think I upped the numbers last time. I guess what I would hope, and sometimes it's hard for me, is I try to find what's on there and then forward it or copy and paste it to other local sites, and I think that's where we're gonna get as much traction as we can, so if our public can also. I know, you're on it, I know you're on it.
You know, and Kelly, that being said, you know, because we have a very active PTC page, then it, you know, it goes from there to the Okemo Valley page, so
Right.
even though as a school, we're still in that process of
Right.
trying to figure out how to make that work, we have other ways to get the information.
Right,
out
which is
to
what
folks.
right, I'm looking for that ripple effect, what, if nobody ever goes to your page, whatever. But that ripple effect is really what we're looking for, and so that's what I've been trying to create, and I, you know, I'll say it again, I've been banned from some of those pages, so I can't always be the one to do it.
I can borrow it.
You get banned?
You do
Yes, I did. Just took one comment and I was done.
Very good comment.
It was.
We've been also hitting, front page forum as well as sending off to the Chester Tower.
I feel like I'm also not hearing a lot of chatter about it, which is making me a little nervous, because then people don't know, but I'm trying to say things I've seen a lot on Facebook with little comments, so I don't know.
Green Mountain, there was not a peep.
Yeah.
This was interesting.
Are you sending it to the Vermont Journal?
That I haven't, I can.
Because everyone in this area gets the Vermont
For free.
Journal for free. If you have a
Is that the one that just comes out once a month?
Once
No,
a
it's
week.
Once a week, okay.
If you have a mailbox.
Yeah, I sent an article in, it was a couple weeks ago, and so it was
I think
last
we did
week,
chit
last
chat
week it was the
a
front
couple
page story there,
Shit show.
but
Yeah, it's getting.
Oh, that was your story, Dave.
Before I want it to come out.
Come on. Well, come on.
No, well, the deadline is like Monday, right, so you wouldn't hit it.
Deadline,
Yeah.
the real deadline is about like a week ahead.
Right.
Talk about the journal,
What's
Yeah.
that?
the journal.
Yeah.
Isn't it the Friday before?
That was.
Technically,
It goes out
that's what they said.
It's right,
the
deadline
one
or
line.
something.
I think the deadline
Yeah.
is the Friday before.
It's Friday, it's
Right,
Friday.
right. Technically, that's the deadline, but okay, the one I sent it in on Thursday, right? And it showed up not the next week, but the week after.
Yeah.
Okay, and so even though Friday might be the deadline for something small, if, right, for that one they decided.
As soon as we can get it in there.
Yeah,
Right.
good.
Yeah.
I don't think people,
Avoiding it because I was thinking it was every month and we were always outside of that time frame. So
The
that's
chit
my fault.
chat.
The chit chat is every month.
That's the Mount Holly little.
yeah, I don't think the journal reaches Mount Holly. Wasn't there something maybe 2 years ago they stopped delivering to Mount Holly?
I think they go to Mount Holly, but not to Belmont.
Right, only have
Oh,
in our part of town. Yeah.
That's so efficient.
That's really quick.
I think it's up to them, I think it's probably cost, I don't know, I mean, the post office doesn't care.
Do we know, I know like Deb mentioned like what she's doing at Ludlow, like what Mount Holly's plan, similar?
Yeah, our PTG is working on it too, and we're doing a lot of also word of mouth in addition to flyers, and we have a big banner that we're gonna put out on the day of, that's like a huge full-size sheet. So we're doing all the same.
I think also to the absentee ballot, I think,
Oh, yeah, promoting
was one
that.
thing like in the open forums that we had was like people who work and things like that is to make sure they get the absentee ballots.
I think the biggest issue is getting the people who aren't, I mean, obviously getting parents is important. But I think our bigger audience is also people who don't have kids, because those are the people who are harder to reach. So working on that. Any other thoughts or questions, concerns?
Was there any discussion about reaching the high school, the middle and high school families?
Well,
I don't know how, I mean, we've gotta have a list of them.
Of the
Right.
where like the tuition.
Yeah.
It's just the robo.
Well, instead of receiving tuition, we should
Right.
be targeting them as much as we're targeting the
Right,
elementary
Oh,
school.
does she?
Can we do a robocall? Is that what you just said?
yeah.
Yeah, we do that. Will it annoy people enough to say, we're not voting now?
I know other school districts do a robocall the evening before or
Did their
Close
budgets
by.
pass?
That'd be great.
Let's do
Never
it.
has.
Come on, there's data there.
Never
Data.
Don't do it at dinner time.
So,
Right.
actually,
Or like
Cheryl had an idea of what you brought up.
So I think we have the addresses for those because Patty, every year we have to do a tuition request. And I think Patty's been emailing them out for the last couple of years.
Maybe just an email or something,
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
those are, that's a big portion of people
No,
that we
you're
want
right,
to
yeah,
vote.
yeah.
And it's not just our,
Right, because it impacts them too.
it does, and it's not just our cost increase, it's not just the elementary school.
Right.
It's the tuition for their children.
Yeah.
So,
And the kids who are here are moving in that direction,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely, no, I mean, I would encourage a robocall that's quick and easy and,
or an email blast or, you know,
right, whatever, right,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
that
yeah.
program will allow, sure.
That's a great idea.
All right, budget revote, classes with higher special education enrollment, was that covered in the?
Yeah, I have the specifics of each class, but that would be board only.
Right.
So if people are interested in that, I can give you a copy at the end of the meeting. If I do though, it's confidential.
I don't know, and I'm just gonna speak as a special ed teacher. If we don't have an educational need to know, I don't think we need to know that. I think what we need to know and understand and work toward is the implications of what having some higher numbers means or what that is, how that's being addressed and impacted, and do we need to look at too much staffing, not enough staffing? I think that's really our business, not the specific numbers, I guess. unless there's a reason that it becomes.
The class sizes are too small to be.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
I-
because we live in too small of a community, we can figure stuff out in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think I think that it came up because somebody was saying that there were two classes that were 100% students on IEPs, which is not the case. There are two classes between the two schools that are over 50%. But there's not really a way to remediate it because if you've got a sixth grade class and you've only got one, you've got no place to put them. Larger schools where you have multiple classrooms at the same grade, you can move things around and distribute things a little bit more. But there's not a lot we can do to address that, just so that the folks know.
The other reason, I had asked the question earlier, was whether there are some teachers, who are in effect over-referring, or who are either not meeting the needs of kids who are, who need a little bit of extra help, or who for whatever reason, kids from their classes are needing IEPs, right?
I don't think in all situations that has to do with the teachers, as much as the students and the students'
Right, I mean, you have to have a
themselves.
diagnosable disability, which means several people have to evaluate and determine that. A teacher can refer every kid in her class every year, or his class, but 3 or 4 or 5 other people have to evaluate that kid to make it all happen. I think the bigger question is, are we putting our resources in the right places? And that would be the part I think we need to look at and talk about. And if that wants to be in a principal's report or a superintendent's report
I can tell you an observation right now. In terms of, multi-grade and the number of teachers between the two buildings. I think you're at 26 or 27% in terms of, the percentage of the students that are on IEPs, and you're at almost 37%. So there's a big difference between the two schools, and I don't know the exact cause, but my suspicion would be what we're trying to fix with the bringing back the 2 teachers. Maybe a help.
And-
It's not going to change the disability, but it may provide better kind of first instruction.
Yeah, but is the Ludlow number also inflated because it includes kids from Green Mountain and other places who?
So it does.
Yes.
We do have, like I had mentioned in the report, it includes the intensive needs program. Students are counted in our percentage of special education. And even in the pre-K side, there are students who, from the Green Mountain side of the district, who were placed here in our program so that they could receive services. And then we also have families that are moving into district, and, some are moving from within the state, some are moving from outside of the state. And when they come to us and they're already on an IEP, a couple of things, if it's from Vermont, that IEP continues. If they're from out of state, then there's a process that we go through to determine whether or not the IEP continues. And, when I did my dissertational research, one of the things that I did find is Vermont has some of the highest numbers within special education based on how and what disability determinations we have within our state. For example, other health impairment, emotional disturbance. There are different categories that we have in our state that sometimes are not part of other states' disabilities. So in my previous district, we had families who moved to town specifically because it was a Vermont town that they would come to, and their kids would get more services in Vermont than they did in the other states that they lived.
The intensive needs program has, if I recall, has a very small number of kids.
It does.
So it might make a 2 to 3% change on that. The other piece that Deb was bringing up, which is incredibly important, is that idea that Vermont, compared to a lot of other states, does a very good job of identifying students and then serving them, which is not always true. So if we're doing our job the way that we're supposed to, we're probably also identifying more than the other states because we're a little bit more careful about it as a state.
One of the provisions that I didn't mention in the HR bill is setting up AOE doing a study to determine why we have so many special ed IEP people and whether anything needs to be done about it.
Can I just add one other little tidbit? I know that we've had multi-age classrooms for a while, and I know some people like them and some people don't like them, and I personally, I would also like to say that I wouldn't want to hang a hat on that's part of the special ed thing because I'm assuming that kids were thoughtfully placed in those classrooms, and when we're teaching kids, we should be meeting them where they are, and sometimes that's actually easier to do in a multi-age classroom because you're already multi-age, so it's easier to that band of work that you have to do is already sort of naturally there. And so to say that next year kids or teachers are only going to have to teach one grade level isn't necessarily accurate, probably, because kids are all over the place. And so I don't like to slam multi-age classrooms because I think a lot of places do them really well, and I think a lot of people really like them, teachers and parents. So that's just my 2 cents.
I think the biggest solution is the MTSS work. I mean, they've got systems here, and some schools are really good at it across the district. I think I've both districts. But the real focus kind of goes back to what David was saying is, making sure you've got that best first instruction, making sure that the teachers are doing reasonable accommodations and differentiations within the classroom so that the student never has to rise to the level that they need an IEP. And so that's a big focus for the reason that we're kind of revamping that and the work that they're going to be doing next year. So.
Any other comments about that?
Do they do anything different in Chester or Cavendish than we're doing?
They all have a system. I think if I were to give a general critique, so it doesn't apply to all schools, it's that best first practice. They may have the expectation that the teacher is trying some accommodations within their classrooms before they're referring a child. But whether or not the teachers are actually faithfully following through on using those accommodations faithfully for a couple of weeks before they provide information back on how the child is doing is the question. And that would be administration's fault for not holding that expectation. That would be the teacher's fault. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at is making sure that, that process is happening the way it should.
Thank you.
Any other? Then that moves us to our added agenda item, which is executive session. And that would be to talk about non-bargaining unit contracts. So is this the whole of what we have to motion? Okay, it feels short, but maybe it's because it's landscape rather than portrait. Yeah. So I would ask somebody to make a motion for executive session to discuss non-bargaining unit staff contracts under Title I, Section 313, personal contracts.
I mean, should we flip the order? Do we need to do any?
Sorry, I always forget there's a back page now.
Right.
Yep, sorry, no, my bad. I was trying to rush things. All right. No, you're right. I just forgot to flip the page. New business, academic calendar.
So it's attached on the back. It went out to the staff. I got a lot of feedback, which was awesome. It's been adjusted based upon, what we could change that's not violating regs or state law. I sent it out again today. I'm going to wait until either Friday or Monday just to see if they pick up anything else that I may have missed, and then it'll go out to the whole community. And we'll be set up for that. But I don't know if there's any questions about it or why it's structured the way it is, or
I know there was a lot of discussion about like the February vacation
Yeah.
changes. When did that change that we were now on like the state?
They're not on the
In that
state.
sense.
It's one of the things they're working on, but how it works with school districts is there has to be a regional calendar. And so the regionals are usually determined by the schools that send to a particular technical center. Because the calendars all have to be a match for us to be able to send the kids and have everything kind of line up. So what happens is all the schools that are a part of that region, they get together and they vote on a calendar. So we don't get the choice of changing it around. We have to go with what the vote is.
So they're the ones who.
Yeah.
That,
So that's
that
what
group
they're-
voted to kind of switch that
Yeah.
week of the.
And
But
so
Mill River's in a different region than we are, is that right?
I believe so, because they
So
send a
there's-
Rutland.
That's why I think they have a different February vacation.
Yes.
Well, I don't know, because now they might line
Now
up.
maybe the same, because we were different, but now we are gonna be the week.
Right, and are you sure?
For February.
Well, wait, we were different for April. I thought we always had the same February vacation because it's
Right, it's April.
I could double check it.
I thought most districts take the February week that starts with President's Day, so it's only like 4 days. But according to this, it's the week after.
Yeah, that's
Pull up what
what's the
they said.
difference.
Yeah, I,
Many
That's the
districts
difference.
use Patriots Day. For the April.
I can't, my calendar doesn't have it on here yet.
So when does it start on that one?
So according to your
This is
calendar,
February, right?
February 23rd through the 27th,
That's on the calendar they said.
That's a week after.
I mean,
that's the week after we usually do it, and I was given a calendar.
It came from your
It's
district.
I know, and that's why I'm saying I didn't.
Yeah, this-
That's different, because it has always been President's Day.
Yeah,
It's we are now matched with Rutland. Historically, Rutland picks the week after us.
No, Rutland is, I mean, so we've all been on President's Week for February. The difference, what,
So I was
the
saying,
April
why
date.
we,
I
I
don't-
can't change it, but I didn't. Look.
I can check to make sure they sent me the right one. That's it.
Wait, so Kelly, this schedule you saw from Springfield says the week after President's Day?
Springfield. I don't want to put that out there. I did not see one from Springfield. I did see one from districts in that area that I didn't notice, and I usually look at April through February because they're important to me. And I didn't notice that it was a week off.
So there's two people, right? One that helps to set the calendar for Springfield based on the tech center, and one person who coordinates that with the Stafford. And if they, like, this has been happening for years where we're out of sync for the April vacation, and I've stopped trying to work on it because it seems so easy to fix, like, but I don't understand.
So
It's the February one. that's
February,
weird.
the two ways it can be, there's I'll give you the probable reason why it is the way it is. The only way that we can adjust it, and even the law doesn't quite allow it, but if our CBA, our agreement with teachers specifies when certain days have to be, then that's what we have to follow. What we used to do in Randolph, because we were literally dead center in the state, so we had half the people up here and half the people down south, is we ended up every year we'd switch so half the year, some of the people were out of sync with their kids, and then the next year they would be in sync on that vacation just to try to balance it out. But that may be what they're
For
attempting.
here, what happens, it's really unfortunate, is like, and I think it might even hit Mount Holly worse, is we have staff that live in Windsor County, and we have staff that live in Rutland County. And so they're not even able to be off with their families, and childcare is a problem. And it's like, it just seems like Springfield and Rutland could talk to each other and just fix it. It's easier than the Randolph thing where you'd have to alternate. You don't have to alternate, just pick the same, do President's Week and whichever week in April, but pick the same.
And there's no childcare in Vermont, so if you're a teacher whose kids are out of school and you're supposed to be in, you have to take the days off.
Yes.
So it causes a lot of problems.
There was some talk of the Ed bill setting a schedule, you know, a state, having the state have a schedule.
Yeah, they
Be wiped
should.
out.
It would make things a lot easier.
All right, sorry.
So do we know which, I don't know.
I'll double check. I'm looking at what they sent me.
And it's right on what what they sent you is what they sent you. I can't find the one that I was sent, so.
Yeah.
So, but it might be that February and April are different.
Check it.
That's what it's a lot
Well,
of
it depends on what you mean by
when it's
different,
out.
so.
Different weeks.
Right, there-
One, I think
February is
November-
pushed back, it no longer aligns with President's Week, but I can't
But I
find when
think, I
President's Week
think
are.
Rutland County is keeping the traditional.
President's Week, and now April break is the 20th through the 24th.
And Mill River is
Right.
13th. And Rutland City.
Right.
Just.
And I unfortunately can't find the one that I was sent a few weeks ago, which was not approved, it was an unapproved one, but, and so changes could have been made since then too. But the long and the short of it is, we really don't have any control over it other than PD days and that kind of thing anyway, so it is what it is.
And the board doesn't approve the calendar, right? We're just offering suggestions, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's for informational
That's pretty-
purposes,
what
right?
I-
It gets sent by the tech center,
Right.
they just can't get on.
It's knowing how to answer to.
Yeah, folks were asking
People's
about
not
it last
too
time,
happy
so I
about it,
figured it was, I'll throw it in there.
Yeah.
Committee reports, policy committee. Policy committee. There is a discussion at the TRSU board about the policy committee. Now that Green Mountain and TRSU are doing the governance, it might affect, and I put that out there at TRSU, it might affect how the policies are run through the boards, and I don't know that there's much to talk about it tonight until we see how it's gonna work out, but unless you have different information that we didn't have the other night.
No, the last understanding I had, and I'm a little punchy because we've had so many late nights lately, so I apologize for being a little goofy tonight, that's why. Is the idea that it goes to the TRSU first, and then it goes, it actually follows the calendar of the meetings. So TRSU, Ludlow-Mount, Holly would vote on it next, and then Green Mountain.
Right, but if we're doing policy governance
Oh,
and that's changing at the TRSU level, it is gonna
That'll be on a different
ripple affect
schedule
our
when that happens.
policy, how we normally operate.
So the governance policies are separate from the policies that you usually make decisions on.
Right.
Though it just governs how they interact with the superintendent. So it shouldn't change anything about the regular policies that you have.
Okay.
They're kind of separate categories.
Okay, I asked that the other
Good
day and it
question,
didn't
though.
seem like that was the answer, but maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, but if they do adopt policies that change the procedure, it would be interesting to see them. Yeah, right.
Right.
So, I mean, it doesn't mean we necessarily go along or don't go along, but it would be
Right.
interesting input.
Like what Lane is saying is it's policy governance has its own set of policies.
Right.
To policy the policies, and then it's the policies that,
It's the stuff that
Yeah.
controls our operations
Right.
and how we interact with people. The policy governance is how the board interacts with this community, so it's kind of separate. It could affect them and have nothing to do with anybody else.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, it would still be interesting to see them. So that we could decide, well, gee, maybe we want to do some of what they're doing,
Okay,
even if we don't jump in full way.
I can make sure it gets passed off. They're probably about a third of the way through from the first meeting, and the Green Mountain has their meeting right now. That's where I was bouncing back and forth.
committee, a facilities committee, we have not
I
met,
think,
but,
as I said, I think
yeah,
if the budget passes, I'd probably like to try to call a facilities committee meeting between April 22nd and before our May meeting. No, so usually TRSU is on there as a report. I mean,
yes,
I mean,
TRSU
I think we need a
update,
report from
right.
TRSU.
yeah, and it didn't get put on here.
Didn't get put on.
Or it got omitted, yeah. I don't think there was much, we did anyways,
I
that would
didn't
be
bring my notes, but
Yeah.
there was nothing.
not anything, yeah. I mean, a lot of what gets said there gets repeated here, so a lot of times it's redundant anyways.
And a lot of it, we were ahead of them. They were
Right.
saying the same thing we had said the previous.
Right. Public comments?
You're very good. For the record,
Yes.
how many minutes of recess do the first and second graders have?
So, sure. There is a 15-minute snack recess time built into the schedule and then a half an hour recess time following lunch. And then at the teacher's discretion, they can take them out throughout the day for brain breaks and stretching breaks and things like that. So built into the schedule, 45 minutes a day.
For the record, I support the first and second graders.
How much more do they want is the question.
Well, if they could be out all day, they would certainly do that.
I feel like was it last year's first and second asked about ducks? Could they have ducks in the classroom? Wasn't that?
That was not what I was here.
Oh, that was with Kathy.
Was it with Kathy? It was the Spanish class.
And she was-
Yeah, she was similar to us.
So Erin, when they wrote the letters, they were very thoughtful in what they put into their letters. They had indicated that extra movement and fresh air helps their brains learn.
It's backed by science.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you just
And-
state your name for the minute? Sorry, Devin, I
Yeah, of
interrupt you.
course. Aaron Galley.
Thank you.
And so they had some very good arguments to support what they were asking for. So I'll consider what they have to say, and see where we can compromise and come up with maybe some more recess time for them.
I think
It sounds like they
that
put a
comes up
level-
with many scientific studies saying that.
And so seeing where they started this year and seeing where their writing pieces were at the beginning of the year and seeing that they are, stating a claim and providing evidence and stating a claim and providing evidence and then writing a conclusion, it's phenomenal to see them do that.
Sounds like they're doing better than most adults in society.
And maybe it means they can afford a little more time outside.
Recess, yeah.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Francis.
Great question.
Thank you. Public comments. Next meeting, 6 p.m., May 14th in Mount Holly, but that's not exactly accurate because we have a April 21st
Budgeting.
a budget forum.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Not a board meeting, but-
yeah. Anything else that's lingering out there? That there is the workshop for TRSU, but that's not for here. I think that's just it. The April 21st budget forum and then May 14th regular meeting, both in Mount Holly, both at 6 p.m. All right, and then we will now entertain, unless I'm mistaken, anybody want to correct me? A motion to go into executive session to discuss non-bargaining unit staff contracts under Title I, Section 313, personnel contracts.
Thank you.
Katie's make the motion.
Second.
Whoever Amber heard first. Can you stop recording, please? And whoever's may or may not be in there at 7:41.
And we're gonna invite in.
Yeah, sorry, are we doing, who are we doing? Craig and you? No, just Craig.
I'm here.
Right, just Craig.
Yes.
Craig and
So,
Deb.
And
and Deb, sorry. But do you guys want to, are we talking about their contracts? We should, don't, are they gonna,
I don't know what you've done.
yeah, usually you guys leave and then wait and come back, correct?
That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah,
I didn't get to come back last year.
oh.
He wants to ask back this year.
I would like to come back this year, if that's okay with you guys, just to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah,
Share
so,
any thoughts I might have.
Yeah, do you wanna, say anything in executive session first? We'll invite you, and then if not, we'll have you go. I don't know. I'm inviting you to say a piece if you feel the need, and then if not, then we'll ask you to leave, and then we'll talk, and then,
Okay.
is that fair?
Time out, we
Yeah.
are still recording.
Right, we are still recording, and but wait, this is.
That's because I was trying to cover who you're inviting in, but you haven't done yet.
So, right, that's what I was gonna, that's what I was stopping you. So I'm going to, do we have to then come out of executive session to officially ask them to leave
No, you
and re-go back in?
Kick them out.
Okay.
You're saying on the same topic.
Okay, so I would ask for the motion to discuss non-bargaining staff contracts under Title I, Section 313, inviting everybody at this table and Julie. And then we'll allow Deb and Craig to have some input, and then we'll ask them to step out. And if they choose to return, they will be welcome when we come out of executive session.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
And then I will go get them and let anybody in who needs to be.
And you just want to.
I did, but I told them that they
Come
had to wait
closer.
a second until we got back in.
And
I
we're,
didn't want them in here when the recording started.
so we're asking what time?
Exited at 8:37.
Thank you. And we are recording.
Yes.
Okay.
That's when I was ready to go, but. All
All right, we're good. I just wanted everybody, that, you probably have a key, but that door is locked.
This
one's yes.
Give me my radar. I think you can do it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, so we are officially out of executive session. Deb and Craig are back in. We are recording. All right, so, I would look for a motion.
Yep, I'm gonna make a motion to offer the non-bargaining employees a 4% increase. Both the LES and Mount Holly principal will have a salary of $128,159.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Oh.
Sorry.
No, I'm not opposed.
Oh,
We're gonna offer too.
oh,
So now you've got one.
okay. Let's vote on this motion, and we had everything else so good. All right, we will motion, all those in favor, yes, nobody's opposed still, correct? Okay, the motion carries. Then I would look for a motion to offer, sorry, I'm looking at old notes and now there's a name stuck in my head. Deb Huglera? Higuera, 2-year contract, because she's in her second year.
Yes. I make that motion.
Thank you, Katie.
Second.
Thank you, Jen. All right, so the motion on the table is to renew Deb's contract for 2 years. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, perfect. Now we're all set, right? Okay. All right. And then board self-evaluation? Board members are given and read the agenda and background materials prior to the meeting. They did. Board members are respectful of each other and the public and the administration. Board members handle conflict openly and constructively. Board members focused on the role and responsibility of the board. Thank you. Board members acted as a team once a decision had been made, and we worked collaboratively throughout the decision-making process. Yep. Thank you. All right, and for the next agenda, we just need to make sure that we have the meeting minutes on there to redo. All right.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
And I might be misunderstanding, but did you discuss the vendor's motion last year to have one-time cash payment of $10,000?
Yes.
You decided not to do it?
Well, we did the one time.
I mean,
Yeah, so, if you want.
has it already been paid?
No.
Speak to your new you.
That's not what the motion was that we could, the only reason I didn't ask to come back the next month after I wasn't invited into executive session or even had, the courtesy to have a conversation was because it was going to go onto my salary, which would help me get a better average for my final 3 years. And so I was okay with losing my 403B, but then I don't know. It may have been an error based on what you're saying now to give me the 403B and not the $10,000 cash payment. I was okay with that despite the way I didn't even get a chance to have a conversation with you about it. But I don't want to, I gave up so much money on my salary for so many years to not have that $10,000 applied back to my salary. It's really
I would
like a
say
really big hit.
at this moment that we would have to have Lane look into it. I'm only looking at what is here.
The
So,
15 minutes?
yeah.
Don't they say a one-time cash payment?
No, well, you can read it. So I would ask Lane to look into it and, wait, it must be, can I flip this through so I can just tell them what month it is?
Sure.
I actually propose that this personnel discussion happen offline.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's why I'm trying to do that. Yeah, so tomorrow you and Lane can talk, and if there's a need for a bigger discussion, we can do that later.
And that'll give me the information to
Right.
be able to kind of investigate
Yeah.
and see.
And I gave you the date, so you've got that. All right. Any other? We did that. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Uh,
All right.
For an hour ahead of last year.
Hey, we did an hour and a few minutes.
Right.
I appreciate it.